Human family, thank you for tuning in. I'm Keenan White, and I'll be sharing stories, dialogues, and methodologies for leading a conscious, abundant life. To me, luminous is a word that connects us to our vital life force energy and soul essence. Your bioluminosity is a barometer for health, a gauge for abundance, true prosperity, and a luminous way of life. In this podcast, I hope you find a more effortless way of tuning into the wisdom of your body, soul, and spirit. We'll explore the many faces of medicine, creativity, and self-mastery as it evolves and spans into esoteric and ancient wisdom and modern paradigm shifts in consciousness. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Luminous Possibilities. I'm Keenan White, your host, and I've got Dr. Fred Grover here. He's a board-certified family physician. His practice emphasizes preventative, functional, integrative, regenerative, and personalized medicine. He has an additional board certifications in integrative medicine and anti-aging and regenerative medicine. I met Fred a few years back, and it's just been such an honor and pleasure to be around him. He has such a diversification of experience in his practice. You know, whether he's been helping birth thousands of babies, or going into some of these revolutionary health programs. He's introduced me to a lot of beautiful, amazing ways to approach health and optimize the human experience. I'm very grateful to know you, Fred. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, likewise, Keenan. Great to be here. And the last time we connected, I was showing you how to do a crystal medicine wheel in my basement. So
Yeah.
I remember that clearly, and so amazing you were able to do some of that work for Mother
Yeah.
Gaia.
I took those crystal medicine wheels, or at least the idea of how to create them, out west, and I was traveling from Colorado to San Diego during that time, and I just stopped into a lot of different Native American land. Chaco Canyon was one. I went to Zion. You know, some of them are national parks, but it was really fun to feel the calling of the land, and then bring in some of the selenite, make this little medicine wheel, do a little prayer on the earth, and activate some of the energy there. I wonder how you want to start this conversation out. I feel like we've got so many amazing topics we could dive into, and I feel
Mhm.
like we're probably going to end up doing like a few part series here, maybe a 3 part. Today we were considering focusing a lot of our attention on the awakening process through sacred sexuality, and we were going to talk quite a bit about plant medicine as well. And so, where do you want to start? What feels alive for you right now? We could even dive into some of the crystal work, just given the segue there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely still want to talk about sacred sexuality, but I would say one of the amazing benefits of doing medicine wheels and placing crystals around the world for me and for other people that do grid work is it does connect you more intimately with Mother Gaia by honoring her and connecting to her deep levels of energy, and then allowing this process of connecting other energies on the planet as you place crystals in different parts of the world. So if you're placing crystals in Native American sites honoring, for example, the ancient Puebloans, um, you can also, interconnect from Mesa Verde to Chaco to Mayan sites with the intention of flowing some of that ancient wisdom and knowledge and hopefully awakening some of that knowledge for higher consciousness and um, personal development in yourself and healing of the planet Earth. And I think it's a good segue into talking about sacred sexuality because, in the same ways we're honoring Mother Earth, we're honoring our partners in a deep, intimate love that can help us grow by sharing that heart connected space together. And by doing that, I think it helps us understand ourselves better and then become deeper, more awakened individuals as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think the way that we really receive the Mother Earth energy and Gaia, and relate to that, as this living spirit being full of life force. It's a similar relationship we're most likely going to establish with our mates and our partners, and it's going to be a similar energy of, what energy are we holding towards the planet? What energy are we holding towards one another? One of the things I've been kind of contemplating on lately is this idea of a real sacred container for a relationship, and feeling into the sort of new age ways of exploring relationship and opening that up to many different people. And yeah, it's been an interesting one because I've had explorations on each side of it. And one of the things I've been thinking about is how important it is to recognize how, like, where, I guess, where my life force is going. And so what
Hmm.
I've been thinking about is, if my and it's if for a man, it's kind of like feeling into and understanding where your seed is going. And
Hmm.
for a woman, it's more about how are you receiving that seed? And it's not necessarily semen, it's actually just life force energy pouring into a particular area. And so it could just be a focus with a particular woman, or it could be a focus on many different women. It could be, you might be focusing on some other element of beauty, whether that is nature, or it could even be a car, something that represents that feminine beauty. And the way that we place that focus and energy and attention seems to me really important, at least on a male perspective. And I'm feeling into how it, ultimately within that sacred container of a partnership, each person is getting to somewhat seal the container to be able to experience more of each other's life force, and all of that running in together. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of how I'm seeing sacred sexuality, is that the more that we are able to feel our partner, feel the person we're with, and actually run some of the energy through our system, through our toric field, the more we get replenished by the relationship. And the more that that leaks out, or the more that we place emphasis or energy in another area, the less that's available for that partnership. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. It's just more where are we all getting filled up?
Hmm.
And maybe to what extent do we want to experience, the benefits of this particular relationship? So I don't know
Yeah.
what comes up for you around that, but
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think it's a merging of the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies with our partners. And of course, men have both energies, masculine and feminine. Same with women. Um, you know, at, on a particular day, particular time, we may be more masculine. At another time, we may be more feminine. And I think it's a matter of meeting our partner in that space that is able to complement our partner, and then spiral, as you're mentioning, whether it's a toroidal field of energy, or sometimes I visualize it as like a double helix, almost like a DNA spiral when I'm with my partner, and visualizing that merging of energies in a spiral morphing into toroidal, um, creating a field of resonant energy that then amplifies um, our energy fields in a complementary way, uh, giving us that opportunity for further enlightenment, for further chakra activation, um, third eye opening, etc. And then I think the ultimate for me is um, going into that space of, I am love, and going into that space of oneness with my partner. And when I drop into that space, even if it's for seconds, minutes, or hours, that is to me the ultimate space that one can achieve. And yes, it can be done um, on an individual basis, but I think it's more powerful, meaningful, and expansive when we're doing it with a partner. And I've definitely felt myself exploding with love to the edges of the universe when I've been with my partner. Have I done that on my own? Yeah, to a certain extent, but it just feels more accelerated and powerful in a relationship than it does as one. And I think it is a manifestation of that divine masculine and feminine energy, just you know taking new leaps and bounds beyond what we can do as an individual.
Yeah, totally. I think what we're both pointing to is this concept of union,
Hmm.
and having a union. And there is a difference, I think, between having a union versus having a relationship. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's a beautiful exploration to have. And is there anything that through your experiences you feel like offering in terms of one stepping onto that path, or experiencing more of that? One thing that I was kind of feeling also about what you're saying, each man, each woman has masculine, feminine energies. And then there's another component which I've been interested in playing with. Some of David David's work kind of points to this, and I appreciate it because it feels important that each of us, whether we're men or women, have a core essential energy.
Hmm.
And it's a core masculine energy. It could be a core feminine energy. I mean, I definitely feel my life demonstrates much more of a core masculine energy just because I prize freedom over, so much. And usually what the core feminine, is craving is this love. I mean, in some ways they're both the same. Our words can be tricky because they tend to dichotomize things. But
Yeah.
I love what you said about the idea that it is that calling in, or that intention that I am love, that I am freedom, that changes really everything. Instead of, if you have a core masculine essence going outside of the relationship or into life looking for freedom, or as a
Hmm.
core feminine, you may do the same thing, but you're looking for love somewhere other than that which is you. And
Hmm.
so the union process, I think, like what you're pointing to too, about, you can do that on your own. But I think when we can experience the divine and the source energies through another, there's some much deeper level of fulfillment, and maybe like closing of the circuitry, opening of it, but also kind of closing the loop. There's a
Hmm.
different sense of completion that I've experienced with that level of union.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, in terms of preparing for this level of, sacred sexuality or tantra, however we want to call it, I think most of us need to do our own inward work, our own mindful based practices, discover who we are on a deeper level, connect to Mother Earth, spiral her energies in, connect to Father Sky, by creating that flow of energy from earth and sky and flowing that through our bodies and becoming more awakened, then we're more prepared to hold that space for our partner. And likewise, they should do the same thing, or hopefully we can lead them to achieve that enlightenment and grounding, as well as awakening to participate in the next level of sharing prakti, prana, whatever we want to call it, right? Uh, but yeah, I think it's almost like looking at subatomic energy and how we have electrons and positrons, neutrons, everything's interacting in a way that complements the field of energy, and by appreciating that element of quantum mechanics, we're able to appreciate the human energy body. Um, you were talking about again the toroidal field of energy. Earth has a toroidal field of energy going up through the poles and out around the planet. So that same field of energy is within us. That same field of energy is on most of the other planets around the world, and or I'm sorry, around the universe and beyond. So as above, so below. And I think if we can connect to quantum levels of energy, if we can connect to sacred geometry, we can connect to sound, which also has a lot of mathematical um, elements that can balance us, then we're further going to take ourselves along that spiritual path, without a doubt.
I love that. Yeah, well, I feel like we could zoom in a little bit into all that, and gather a little bit more from your expertise around that. Yeah, I love that you simplify it too, because it really it is simple, and I suppose, at least to me, it feels like when we're close to something that's really true and resonant or wisdom, then there's always a quality of simplicity. And I like how you're bringing in the idea of simply opening up to all of these energies, because if we're in a relationship with somebody else and we're wanting to explore this union with them, then what is our level of union with the rest of our life? Are we in some ways able to pull in this the energy of another plant? I mean, because you can even go over to a tree or go over to another animal, even a dog or cat, and begin to feel into what's there, what's present, what's running through them, this life force energy that's kind of permeating everything. And it seems like that our willingness, maybe, or intention to open up to that is going to go a really long way in the a sacred relationship, or a
Yep.
relationship which we're exploring through a sacred container. And I
Yeah.
suppose that word gets thrown around a lot, but I feel like sacred to me is just, it's an intentional space.
Yeah. Yeah, this Labor Day weekend, I was out hiking with my father, actually. It was really beautiful, and, um, being in the woods, I was just recognizing how over the years, I've really, appreciated almost the chi energy of a pine tree, you know, or an aspen tree, whatever it may be. Even the rocks, they almost seem to glow, even though I'm not on any kind of, psychedelic medicine, and I think over time, we can rewire ourselves to appreciate the higher levels of chi that are, being emanated from plants and animals and rocks around us. And it's being attuned to that and flowing with it, having some heart connectedness to it, some third eye connected to it, and then allowing nature to heal us and put us in that deeper mindful based state. It was fascinating to me because it was a crowded weekend up in Breckenridge area. How so many people were disconnected on the trail. I would wave at them; they wouldn't even recognize that I was on the trail. They were, looking down at their phones, or they had their earbuds in, or they're racing by on their mountain bikes. And um, I'd say maybe a third of them actually were, you know, recognizing people and appreciating, the human element on the trail and waving and saying, I hope you're having a great hike thing. And that used to be more of a regular thing I'd see. Now it's kind of a rare occurrence that people are actually interacting, and it has me seriously concerned about the current consciousness of the planet. And I don't know if that's a disconnect due to everything that's going on in our country, if it's a disconnect related to technology, disconnecting our brains from nature. Even when people
Yeah.
are out in nature, they're still disconnected, or what it is. But
Mm.
um, it has kind of alerted me to my work and your work in terms of helping other people reconnect to nature, reconnect to themselves, and then create a deeper, loving, intimate relationship with their partners so they truly are alive and not just a drone floating around in a mindless space on planet Earth, which so many people are lost souls, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Sad to
it
witness,
is really quite sad. Yeah. And I love that, when you first were interested to bring this topic, awakening through sacred sexuality, I was lit up because I it's a passionate area for me, because it really does feel like if we can bring in an element of, relating to one another more consciously in just a simple partnership, then it really does also change the way we're relating to everything else as well. It goes vice versa, right? I mean, we can go into nature and we can have a particular relationship that we have there, inviting the energies of, the chi and the prana from all these living organisms, and the elements into our body, and then bring that into the relationship, and it goes vice versa as well. And it feels really just, I mean, almost like a priority that we need to bring in a greater sense of that ability to just be present with one another and feel each other and recognize the astounding beauty that exists in this moment, at any moment we're in.
Yeah. I mean, as the Mayans say, "En lakesh alaken," right? I'm appreciating the beauty in you, the namaste elements and everything. I think we've lost that. And I think it's, because we've lost our deeper brain structure activation from being with nature, from being more in close relationship with human beings, and not being around a fire drumming, looking at the stars. Instead, we're watching our TV set at night. So our brains are being rewired, and we need to counter that rewiring to technology to rewild us to connect with nature, ourselves, and others in a more humanly way rather than being bots floating around. So
Right.
um, I think the work you're doing and I'm doing, as mentioned, is hopefully cutting new trails back into the wilderness, cutting new trails back into deeper reconnections and flows that will balance us and address all this dysfunction that's creating depression, anxiety, all the PTSD related to violence, um, all the disconnects, from being able to collaborate and come to, um, some kind of meaningful resolution, whether we're talking politics and addressing
Mm.
climate change or gun control. We can't come together on anything these days because of this ongoing disconnect. So I think sacred sexuality and nature are two ways to bring it all back together, but being able to bring that message to the masses is the challenge, and how do you get that word out is what I'm concerned about. Um, I do feel the psychedelic renaissance, which is occurring here in Colorado, with the Natural Medicines Act coming up here in November. Hopefully, will pass. That as we bring that online, there will be definitely an activation of more individuals to appreciate this realm of um, healing and awakening as it catalyzes that. But we have to get there first, and then you know continue to work on other states and hopefully make it more of a nationwide legalization of things such as psilocybin, at least, and some of the other plant medicines like San Pedro and ayahuasca would be amazing as well.
Yeah, and those truly do have such an amazing power to rewire some of these patterns that are really creating that disconnect. And yeah, it seems like, if there's any maybe issue you're highlighting within the realm of health that you've seen in your practice of medicine is this idea of this disconnect. And maybe we can break that down a little bit more too. I mean, how do you see, like, what is going on in the system, in the brain, in the physiology when there's a disconnect, and what's happening when there is a connection
Well, I'll
in
tell you, a
your
lot of the
lens?
disconnect is due to the prescribing of SSRIs and SNRIs. It disconnects the mind and the body. They're unable to feel love as well. They're unable to feel passion, sadness, the emotional disconnect that occurs. So there's this element of blunting that's occurred through the overprescribing of psychotropics, particularly the SSRIs, but also the mood stabilizers. And I do feel they can be helpful, in certain cases. But I think because we're in the state of quote unquote Prozac nation, that we're seeing more episodes of mass shootings, gun violence, suicides, etc., because people don't give a shit about being depressed. They don't give a shit about being anxious. They don't give a shit about putting a gun to their head or taking an AR-15 to a group of students because of that total mind-body disconnect, particularly with higher doses of SSRIs. We even found in studies and even on a black box warning in Europe that they've said, you know, these medications not only increase the risk of suicidality, but increase the risk of homicidality. Now they've taken that off the black box here in the US, probably because Big Pharma has been able to push their agenda with legislators and money, but it truly exists. So, first would be take people off these meds that don't need to be on them.
Yeah.
And then the second, yeah, would definitely be, as a provider, as a physician, or as a therapist, or any kind of natural healer, we need to help people facilitate reconnecting their mind to their body, feeling into what's going on. So if they have fear and they're holding it in their third chakra, can we do some breath work to help clear that? Can we do some energy work on their third chakra to help clear that? Can we do some sound healing with a Tibetan bowl? Maybe it's a combination of all these modalities. Um, do they need to be referred to a facilitator that can do psilocybin or MDMA to go a little bit deeper and take that default mode network offline so that they can, take the filters of the frontal lobe out of their prefrontal cortex and then clear that element of fear or past trauma in a deeper way so that then able to be more heart connected to their friends and their lovers, etc. So yeah, multiple modalities we have to look at to get people back online, more or less. It really is a rewiring process of um, heart connectedness, of letting go of past traumas, and then reconnecting to ourselves, reconnecting to nature, and reconnecting to the stars, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, I was really feeling into that idea of grounding through the stars. We sometimes think about that idea of going out for a couple hours and totally filling up with the shamanic resonance of the earth, and how much just simply doing that can impact our health in such a positive way.
oh
And there's
yeah.
been a few times I was watching stars and feeling the same thing, and just even laying on your back and looking up at the stars. I feel like there's a way we can plug in a similar
Mhm.
fashion that feels so grounding, so replenishing, that we just often do not necessarily get, at least in maybe a strong enough dose of that time of really being with the stars in the sky. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I feel like everything you said there is really, I mean, what occurs to me, right now, is that we have so many options, and part of this issue is a part on lack of education. Some of these pieces not really, key information being left out. I mean, that's a big problem. But I think the more that we can bring more awareness back to what's really evidenced, then we can really see a way through this.
Yeah, and I think the importance is having a large toolkit, right? And not a tiny little box, but an actual craftsman toolkit that's got multiple drawers is like how I like to visualize it. And without being willing to explore the various options in plant medicine and connecting to nature, um, and doing meditation and doing movement, whether it's yoga, tai chi, qigong, whatever, we're neglecting the greater field of energy that we can bring in and balance ourselves with. And example would be there's this huge trend talking about microdosing and how it's just like the end all be all, right? With third wave or whatever the name of that website is, and I think they're doing good work, right? But there's a lot more to life than just microdosing mushrooms. You have to be able to synergize that with meditation and all these other things. And maybe actually you need to do a macro dose where you're dropping yourself into a psychedelic space and not just doing a light stimulation daily to improve creativity and focus. So I think there's a lot more to it than the simplified cookbook ways that are being presented on social media. And everybody has their own individual pathway. I don't think you can just square somebody into a box and say this is the way and the only way. And I think that holds true, in terms of ceremony holding and everything else. Sometimes it can be overly structured, and I think it needs to be destructured to a certain degree to allow that flexibility and creativity for people to find that flow to awaken themselves and their highest potential.
I love that. Yeah, no one size fits all, and no real magic pill. And it goes back to say, how important it is to have somebody that can really view your situation and your life in a holistic way, to be able to support you, guide you, facilitate whatever processes need to happen. And I see also the connection to sacred sexuality as well, in the same sense. Any technique is only going to be one part in the toolbox there as well. In this relationship, partnership, union, what is true for one person is going to be very different for another person. Their gateway into a quality of consciousness that is more unified, a more unified field of awareness, is going to be pretty different, depending on who they are, what their experiences are, what their biochemistry is, and their neurophysiology is. Um, So, is there anything right now you feel? Would you like to go back into more of that relationship side of things, or do you want to speak a little bit more to some of this rewiring process with some of the medicines out now and available to us? Um, yeah, what's alive for you now?
Yeah, I would say let's shift into talking about psychedelic medicine and the benefits of that. I think that would be good because what psychedelic medicines can do is more or less stir up your snow globe, um, and allow us to rewire in a way that can be very therapeutic, beneficial, and enlightening. Um, we can do that, of course, without psychedelics, but I think there is an opportunity to go deeper and further through the use of these plant medicines and even some of the man-made medicines that are out there. Um, I just wanted to make a real quick disclaimer that Keenan and I can't endorse the use of these meds due to the legal restrictions that are present in the state, federal, and individual countries. So please maintain awareness around the legalities of various plant entheogens. And if they are applied in a solo mindful based practice with your partner or in a group, that you've created a safe setting of consent and boundaries with other participants, and that you have an integration process planned within a day or two of doing this kind of work. Um, in regard to intimate relationships, definitely want to again make sure that you have mutual consent and agree on where you're going with the process, set limits, and have an ability to say, "Hey, this is uncomfortable," to share that with your partner during the journey. Thanks for that little segue there.
Yeah,
Um,
necessary.
that
Yeah.
being said, I would like to discuss psilocybin because it is decriminalized here in Colorado and something that we can discuss without much concern. Some of the other plant medicines can be a little bit on the riskier side to discuss. Um, but I would say psilocybin is one of the oldest and most significant plant medicines that we have, readily available. Pretty much any country, any state, except for maybe some of these police states that like Malaysia or Singapore, where you can access it. It's been around for thousands of years. It's been found on every continent except for Antarctica, and probably will be found there as the glaciers are quickly melting in some fossilized form, and maybe even in a petroglyph or something. But I think psilocybin, for me and for many of my friends, has been one of those amazing molecules that can improve the intimacy in a relationship by kind of a multifactorial pathway. And one of the amazing things is the improved sensitivity to touch. I think that when you're with a partner and they're doing body work on you, you can feel energy being moved more readily. You can feel your chakras being balanced while on psilocybin. And then you can also have this deeper level of heart opening and third eye opening that can allow you to travel into that deeper space with your lover that can really take you to new realms. The beauty of it is it has a 4 to 6 hour duration and fairly well tolerated. And I know all of us get a little bit of side effects in the first couple of hours, sometimes some temperature changes, a little nausea, a little edginess as we're dropping in. But typically in the second half of the journey is when we can be intimate with our partner and be in flow in a way that is comfortable and very enhanced compared to a normal conscious state. And I think part of the level of improved intimacy is that default mode network is fairly offline if we're doing a reasonable dose of 2 to 3 grams, and we're we're not thinking about, oh, maybe I should be doing this or maybe I should be doing that, and does she like this or that? We can just kind of flow into it in a more natural way. We can oftentimes see um, stuck energy in our partner. We can spin that energy in a Reiki-like way. We can um, hold light energy flowing through our palms into their heart. We can hold our forehead to their forehead and flow third eye energy. Um, and then, working the level of Kundalini energy is much enhanced too. So we can work the root chakra all the way up to the crown chakra through tantric massage, through sound healing, placing, a Tibetan bowl on somebody's root chakra and just moving it all the way up their spine to help open and flow that as well. So I think there's just this um, catalyzing of energy, amplification of energy, and then a ability to allow that flow of masculine and feminine energies to be more readily released than when we're slightly inhibited due to our conscious mind thinking about this or that or whatever the f we've got to do the next day, or oh, I forgot to pay that bill, that kind of thing. So you're just more in flow. What are your thoughts, Keenan? You kind of
Yeah,
experience that too.
I love that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I feel like the time that I've had with psilocybin has really been a great opportunity to help me rewire my, just more on the physiological level of letting go, releasing, and being present with my experience. And like you
Hmm.
said, not necessarily feeling like I need to be somewhere or think about something that's really pulling me out of the present experience. And there's a certain quality of surrender that I think is there as well. The more that I think we can surrender to the experience we're having and release control, I think this is really part of the gift with psilocybin is that it's almost kind of like nudging us a little bit to let go a little bit more. And so
Hmm.
I do feel like the on one side we can go down, this pathway of feeling a little more nauseous or a little bit more edgy and anxious if we're not surrendering. And if there's, if there's any resistance to just what's happening, and the more that we can surrender, the more that I've surrendered in my experience and let go, there's such a powerful deep relaxation into my life that I find. And I've heard from a few other people. There's a woman I'm working with right now who's guiding people onto the other side as a death doula, and some of the crossing over, from this life into whatever's on the other side is, the psilocybin is a fantastic tool for helping people encounter death from a new lens. And I think in some ways that's what is being offered through this particular substance is this moment where we can have a relationship with death in a new way. And that relationship with death is truly synonymous with life. you know the relationship with death is our relationship with life. And how do we die to each moment? you know how we are dying to each moment is how we're living and conjuring up the next. If that
Hmm.
makes sense. so
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there's a really beautiful level of dying to our experience, letting go of the things that don't really matter, letting those things really die off, and then bringing in a whole totally new life and energy to the areas that we may not be, grounded in or feel like we're getting enough of,
Hmm.
which I think are namely just simply connection, connecting to one another. Maybe that's touch, maybe that's some conversation, maybe that's just being with one another and allowing what's present to arise.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think your point on, vulnerability, um, whether we're doing plant medicine or not, is such a key element to our evolution, our ability to connect with others. And I think by taking that filter off with psychedelic plant medicines, we're able to be more vulnerable. And if we are more vulnerable, yeah, I think we're less likely to have those um, flows of anxiety. We're able to let it flow from wherever we're holding it, through breath or through sharing, what's coming up for that individual, that partner, etc. Um, I've definitely had psilocybin journeys where I've just had crazy emotional things coming up for me out of the blue. I was like, where did this come from? And I can say, wow, it was probably trapped in there, and through this amazing molecule, it helped me release it. And sometimes it can be a little embarrassing if you're in a group and you're letting go and kind of crying, but I think it's also showing our vulnerability and our strength to be able to share that with others. And I think that you know is healing. It is showing pure masculine strength. And yeah, I
Mm.
definitely think that's a big benefit there. um but yeah, I think that for me the ultimate is flowing in that beautiful space of connecting energy without being disrupted by conscious thought, weaving those energies deeply with a partner from the root chakra. And then I visualize even spiraling, up into the universe, and oftentimes connecting to Pleiades or whatever constellation comes into my field of energy, and then exploding into this state of nothingness, right? To like a nirvana, and just being there, almost floating in outer space with my partner in just pure love. And that is going into that space of like an NDE, a near death experience, that you're talking about. And I think when we experience an NDE type of journey, whether it's with DMT or psilocybin or other molecules, it makes us more comfortable with death because we realize how beautiful it is, and how silly it is that we're worrying about this or that, or how silly it is that we're even freaking out about the diagnosis of cancer. That we've got a greater place to travel to, and that we're only here for a nanosecond on this planet, and we learn what we can, and we transition and come back as a more highly evolved individual, or maybe we stay up there in the oneness of the universe. Who knows, right? But I think when we have that connection to that infinite space of oneness, then we have more comfort knowing where we're going when we finish this life on planet Earth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it seems that that perspective that we get, whether we're more comfortable with our later in life death experience or not, we most likely this substance is going to allow us to feel, you know, and maybe substance is not even the right word because it's sort of, it's a living being to me. I mean, to me, I feel like I get an experience with the intelligence of this other organism. But I feel like at the very least, it's offering a new perspective on the life that you are living, and
Hmm.
the life that that I've been living in terms of that, and then make having that insight or that realization has oftentimes shifted drastically. And what usually constitutes the shift is a change in bringing much more of the essential into my life,
Hmm.
and then dropping away these things that are really non-essential. And it does occur to me that this, well, particularly with psilocybin, my experience is that it can be very of the body, and so it really
Hmm.
brings you into, there's a spiritual component to it, and I think there's a piece of it allowing us to access some of these higher realms. But I also see it as very much an experience of returning to what's happening energetically in the body and emotionally. And so
Hmm.
if that anxiety comes up, usually there's a real reason that's there. And same with depression. And I think this is the shift that we also need, is this change in mindset of how we view these things, because in some of the pharmaceutical contexts, we have this thing that if something's going wrong and you're off and you're anxious or you're depressed, let's get rid of that. Where this is the moment where I think medicine becomes something else. It becomes a poison,
Yeah.
because the poison is that we're we're taking a solution or a medicine or a you know, it's it is a solution that's taking us away from actually solving the problem. And to me, that's what poison is. And the real medicine in this case of having depression is really realizing the gift of it. Leaning in and, all right, this depression is there for a reason. I mean, anything that's going on in our life is there for a reason. And if we can feel into that, maybe there's something going on in my life if I'm depressed that needs to change. And maybe it is that is the issue. And if
Yeah,
without the feedback of depression, I wouldn't know that. So I
yeah.
I mean, there's the gratitude, right? There's the appreciation that we could have for these things that we
Mhm.
oftentimes try to push away or get rid of.
Absolutely, and I think that, as I mentioned earlier, the psychotropics, SSRIs and SNRIs blunt that feeling, and you're not able to process it, go deep and feel into it, and release it. And so much of what we're doing with plant medicine is helping to clear those energies that don't honor us. Sometimes, again, maybe we need to add in breath work to do it or energy work to help clear it. But by going deep and finding out where it's stuck in our energy body, we're able to hopefully clear that anxiety, clear that depression, and then ultimately rewire our brains so that we're not going down that ruminating path of, oh, I feel depressed and this and that. We break that shit up. And we're like, no, I'm not going to think that way anymore. So it can actually kind of assist the whole process of cognitive behavioral therapy where we're trying to think more positively about things and rewiring to a mindset of seeing the light and not the darkness, and letting go of things. So I think that's the way to treat depression. I do think that there are some physiologic benefits of psilocybin, even ketamine, for example, that help with brain drive neurotropic factor, which helps with neural regeneration, which then helps with neurotransmitter production as well. So it's not only rewiring, it's rebuilding and
Mm.
regenerating the brain, which is fascinating.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, and then I think it's also, expanding our cortex in certain areas to where we're able to recognize certain patterns, whether it's the sacred geometry of nature or the sacred geometry of a particular form, whether it's a platonic solid or looking at the flower of life or a torus, et cetera. Those pattern recognitions are so enhanced by the use of psychedelic medicine.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to share too that oftentimes when you're combining psychedelic medicine with intimacy, you can find that the geometry, the patterns of light that are often produced in a psychedelic state are enhanced when you're in flow with your partner. And when you go to that state of orgasm, I found that it's like fireworks are going off. So I may see all sorts of amazing colors and geometry that just fire off right in the finality there. And then there's a state following it where it's enhanced for at least another 10 or 15 minutes. So it
Mhm.
actually works in terms of enhancing the effects of psilocybin and other plant medicines. Um, in a similar way that music, or for example, Icaros from a shamanic circle of ayahuasca can bring the colors and light into the journey as well. So I think if you combine beautiful music, combined with intimacy, combined with psilocybin, it's truly an off-planet experience that um, I think takes the level of tantra and sacred sexuality to such a higher level.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing that up. Yeah, and it does feel like, our sexuality, our sexual practices, they offer such an accelerated path to our wholeness and to realizing this state of oneness, of wholeness, of healing. And it's interesting how there's another disconnect there too. I mean, the way we sometimes, I think, in society, I mean, I guess I don't want to speak too generally or make generalizations here, but I'm feeling into some of the ways in which I've been educated about sex, even just growing up. And I think there's a tendency, I mean, even the pornography industry and all different ways people are maybe thinking about sex is about the sexual experience only. And yeah, I mean that's amazing. That is an incredible moment to share with somebody. And the I guess the piece that I'm wanting to put my finger on here is about receptivity and receiving, and that when we're entering a space with a partner, and we're in a pattern of control or holding on to, or um, blocking or resisting our experience, then in a sacred sexual space, there's an intention to relax and bring yourself into this space, like you're saying, of release, of letting go, of oneness, of love, of freedom. And the resistances that come up are all these patterns and traumas and even past life things that are there that could be present within our body and our system, and it's held in a memory and a belief and a pattern, something there. And when we're engaging sexually, there's this very simple thing around receiving. If we're not receiving, then what is there, right? And I think this has
Mhm.
really been the power of the sexual experiences that I've had, and some of those being paired with psychedelics as well, is that it's almost kind of like placing your ego on the side a little bit and allowing some of these patterns to show up. And in the sexual act, you're wanting to move into a depth. And so anything that's blocking from that is very clear. It just kind of
Yeah,
pops right up to the surface. And there's this incredible alchemical process that can happen in that space that can be very difficult to touch into if you're just sitting down with somebody and you're talking about your life.
yeah,
Here you're kind of confronting the total depth of your being and your willingness to let go of everything. And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you've really put your finger on it, and instead of, making love being something you're doing, it's something that you're flowing with. It's something that you're being vulnerable with, that you're willing to receive, and that the partner is willing to receive equally. But you're not in this like, oh, I need to do this or I need to do that, and we need to orgasm this many times, things of that sort. You just want to be in a pure, uninterrupted flow without any preconceived notions of where you're going, so that you're able to amplify those resonant energies and flow your chakras in that beautiful double helix form into that state of oneness. And I think so many people just don't know how to get there. Um, they can't relax into it. They're afraid to work with psychedelic medicines to help them flow into that space, or they've had um, traumas, unfortunately, that are blocking them from being able to go there. And that's where they need to do that deeper inward work. Um, either individually or with a therapist to clear that, so that they're able to flow in a more uninhibited way, in a more natural way, in that tantric space of, I am love, right? And rather than I'm doing this or I'm doing that. So,
Yeah, yeah, a little bit
um,
more based on, yeah, measurement or whatever else, performance.
yeah, I think our objective, logic thinking minds put us into this, flow chart or spreadsheet, and we need to just be more in that free flow element of love and just enjoy the whole process. But
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
I would love, if we do this again, we can talk about some of the other plant medicines, San Pedro, Aya, you name it, and kind of
Yeah,
dive a little bit deeper. I think there's a lot to be said on each one of these beautiful plant medicines and some of the molecules that are out there in terms of how deep they can take us, and which ones may work better for certain states of intimacy. And
right.
for example, being in nature with San Pedro with a partner is amazing. It's a longer 12 to 14-hour experience. So it's a completely different opportunity compared to a shorter journey like psilocybin. Um,
Hmm.
and then I could even talk about some of the breakthroughs I've had in the practice doing couples therapy with ketamine in the office, and how that has really helped couples connect on a much deeper level. They can't get intimate in my office, but they can, hold hands, and they can um, let go of things and do breath work, and then that allows them to go home and have that deeper relationship too. So I think there's
Amazing.
opportunities in the medical model to facilitate an the initiation of awakening that they can then work on more at home and develop through plant medicines as well. So many different tools, as we mentioned.
Yeah, totally. I think I'm feeling we probably want to do a few more and get to spend a little bit more of a longer time with each one, and maybe people can get a sense of, feeling into each of these and how they might be appropriate for them. Maybe, since maybe we're feeling a little bit of a closure here soon, I wonder if you might let us know about your books and your projects and where you're pouring some of your energy into lately. I'm going to drop some links in the description around some of your work, and you're going to offer a chapter. I think it's chapter 5 out of your new book that kind of goes into some of these
Yeah.
experiences around sacred sexuality. So that's very generous of you. And yeah, what
Oh, yeah.
you want to share about that?
So, one of the books I actually just put out a second edition on, it was originally published in 2019, called Awakening Gaia. The Lemurian crystal grid discusses placing crystals around the planet to activate ley lines and honor sacred ancient sites and whatnot. And the chapter I'm sending out to everybody that's going to be on Keenan's site is on Peru, and an experience I had in Lake Titicaca doing the plant medicine ayahuasca and a sacred sexuality um, experience that occurred in that area. So I think you'll really enjoy that chapter. Um, the other book I wrote is called Spiritual Genomics. It's basically about how to change your genome through mindfulness activities, whether it's connecting to nature, doing plant medicine, going surfing, doing yoga, you name it. I've got in there sound therapy, sacred geometry. I've got chapters, just like, a toolkit of different things that may resonate with an individual to help them become more awakened. So that's the Spiritual Genomics book. And you can read about all these on spiritualgenomics.com. But definitely read the chapter 5. And then my game plan is within the next year to birth a new book that's going to be called Psychedelic Sacred Sexuality, with some kind of a subtitle.
So
I
needed
may or
for
may
our
not
time.
put my name in there because of concerns being a physician, and how
Mhm.
I might be, attacked by people that are in the more conservative realms. But I'll keep you posted on that development. I've got a lot going on in terms of outlining that book, and hope to have it done by the end of 23. So that's the plan there. And then I think if anybody wants to email us, that'd be great. I'll give you my personal email, which is fine. It's fgroverjr@gmail. And I think Keenan's going to maybe put another email uh, for you guys to email questions. That way we can do some follow-up discussion in our next podcast.
So we certainly welcome any discussion, comments. Please send us some feedback here. We'd love to hear what's going through your minds and hearts and bodies and spirits, and what we can support you in the further episodes. So thank you so much, Fred. It's been such a pleasure, honor to have you. And of course, if anybody wants the real deal, going to visit you in person is always amazing. Your office space is incredible. You got crystal bowls and some of the machines in there. They're just amazing. A massage table. It's got speakers underneath of it, and you got the full gamut. So yeah, it's quite the experience. Always recommended.
Yeah, thanks, Keenan. And yeah, I think the work you do definitely needs to be, experienced by the listeners. And I definitely encourage people to find practitioners that can do this kind of amazing work. Whether it's sound healing, whether it's energy work, whether it's facilitating plant medicine, et cetera. I think the more we can dive into those realms, the better off we are. And definitely get out and rewild yourself, get out in nature as much as you can, get out in the water, um, make love, and go go deeper into those higher realms.
Yes. Doctor
All right, that was
recommended.
amazing, Keenan, and looking forward to the next one. We'll get it going pretty soon.
All right, Fred. Thank you.